retrieved by the Chang'e 5 mission. Sun Ya has the report.
Chinese scientists have discovered 2 new lunar minerals from samples retrieved by China's Chang'e 5 mission. Of the 2 new discoveries, magnesium-Chang'e is a magnesium-rich member related to China's earlier discovery, Chang'e, while Chang'e cerium is a new lunar mineral species characterized by the cerium dominance analog of Chang'e. The discoveries bring the total number of lunar minerals identified by Chinese scientists to 4. Worldwide, 11 lunar minerals have been discovered both in the return samples and lunar meteorites since the 1970s. Chinese scientists behind the new findings were working with just milligrams of lunar soil samples. Out of the hundreds of thousands of tiny grains on one epoxy mount, scientists singled out special grains that could hold evidence of a new mineral. The grains are only a few micrometers across, or about 1/3 to 1/30th the thickness of a human hair. Scientists then zoom in with more precise tests, including chemical analysis, spectroscopy, and crystal structure determination. The team that discovered magnesium-Chang'e also found Chang'e in 2022.
The
new minerals mean new members to the Lunar Mineral Database. The new discoveries have also strengthened our technical capabilities and demonstrated our country's scientific research capacity. This should show that our research in lunar regolith mineralogy has reached an internationally advanced level.
The team that found Chang'e cerium from Chang'e 5 samples had recently identified another lunar mineral, the magnesium-Chang'e cerium. China's slew of new lunar mineral findings could shed new light on the moon and the Earth.
This is very important for understanding the lunar material makeup and composition, and for understanding the moon's formation and evolution. It also provides valuable reference for our understanding on Earth of how rare Earth elements migrate, become enriched, differentiate, and form mineral deposits. Going forward, our work is to continue studying the original samples and investigate new components in the lunar regolith samples, so we can keep expanding our understanding of the moon's composition, formation, and evolution. We also aim to further broaden our knowledge and understanding of how planets in the galaxy form and evolve, while providing a scientific basis for future resource development and utilization.
China's Chang'e 6 mission had brought back 1.935 kilograms of lunar samples from the far side of the moon, the first time in human history. And the earlier Chang'e 5 mission had brought back about 1.7 kilograms of lunar samples. And for about 5 years now, China has been delivering these lunar samples to research institutions, and numerous new findings and understandings of the moon have come out.
Sun Ye, CGTN, Beijing.
The China National Space Administration says China will step up cooperation with other countries in space exploration. The country will also endeavor to provide public goods arising from international collaboration.
We will enhance international cooperation in space. These include areas such as lunar exploration, planetary exploration, asteroid defense, on-orbit services, and space debris mitigation. We will deepen international exchanges and cooperation, advance the International Lunar Research Station, expand international cooperation on space technology and product standards, and participate more deeply in global governance of outer space. We will also provide public goods and services through China's global space cooperation, and build a new landscape of open and cooperative space engagement that contributes to a shared future for humanity.
Japan's House of Representatives has approved the bill to establish a National Intelligence Committee, prompting widespread public concern. The plan, first proposed in March, will establish a new intelligence system led by a national council. The bill and recent moves by the Takachi government have raised questions about transparency and oversight. Demonstrators rallied to voice their opposition to the legislation before its passage.
Right now, the Takaichi administration is trying to drag Japan into war through actions like promoting weapons imports and exports, provoking China, and failing to offer the apologies it should have made afterward. Against this backdrop, opposition voices are actually quite strong, but these remarks will be regulated. Once such a bill passes, not even opposing voices will be able to speak out. This is something I do not want to see.
Takaichi is forcing all of these moves through. Promoting this bill and lifting the ban on arms exports mean heading towards war.
I believe amending the constitution is completely unacceptable. The constitution is not something that members of the National Diet can revise on a whim, and it should never be revised in the first place.
And Japan's rising militarism and related incidents reflecting this shift have raised an alarm. In just 1 month, a knife-wielding Japanese self-defense forces officer trespassed on the Chinese embassy in Tokyo. A Japanese destroyer sailed through China's Taiwan Strait. Japanese troops joined U.S.-Philippines military drills for the first time. The cabinet eased arms export rules. And Prime Minister Nta visited the notorious Yasukuni Shrine 2 days in a row. China has urged Japan to reflect on its history of aggression and called on the international community to never allow a repeat of wartime tragedies.
The public sees clearly a Japan that is actively pushing to amend its national constitution, relax restrictions on the export of lethal weapons, deploy offensive missiles, and significantly increase its military spending. No matter how eloquent its words, cannot conceal its true intention of paving the way for military expansion. Japan is also frequently engaging with NATO, attempting to bring external military organizations into the Asia-Pacific, with its intention to provoke confrontation laid bare. The lessons of history are not far behind and must not be ignored. Countries in the region, including China, must remain highly vigilant, jointly safeguard the victories of World War II, and never allow Japanese militarism to resurface. Never let historical tragedies recur, and never permit any individual or force to undermine peace or bring disaster to the region.
A CGTN poll shows over 82% of respondents find Japan's moves to remilitarize echoes pre-World War II expansionism, which Beijing has cited as a clear and present threat. It noted how Tokyo's right-wing factions have pushed expansionist security policies, revived the arms industry, and seeks to whitewash its discredited image as a peace-loving nation. In other significant news, Iran says it has drawn up a target list based on the principles of reciprocal response and offensive deterrence to address potential military actions by the U.S. and its allies. CMT reporter Li Jianan reports from Tehran.
Iranian officials and public opinion have recently shifted from focusing on whether a deal can be reached in negotiations to how to respond to potential U.S. military threats. The logistics department of the Iranian military said the production of Iran's defense equipment has never been interrupted and will not stop. Meanwhile, Fars news agency reported that, amid stalled diplomacy and deep mistrust of negotiations, Iran has drawn up a list of targets based on the principles of reciprocal response and offensive deterrence. The list outlines various response options to potential U.S. and allied military actions, including blockading the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, striking U.S. and Israeli targets in the Middle East, and launching coordinated attacks through regional resistance forces. Regarding maritime tensions between Iran and the United States, Iran's Judiciary Chief Gholam Hossein Mohseni Ajay said U.S. forces dare not approach the Strait of Hormuz. He noted that naval units composed of speedboats and drones from the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps have been deployed around nearby islands, maintaining vigilance against U.S. vessels. Analysts note that although Iran and the United States remain under a temporary ceasefire, none of the parties have relaxed their positions. Instead, they appear to be growing more hardline and confrontational. In addition, Israel has continued issuing threats against Iran during the ceasefire period. The Israeli defense minister said Israel is prepared to resume war with Iran and is awaiting a green light from the United States to strike Iran's leadership and energy infrastructure. Iranian political analyst Sayed Hossein Mousavian said the deadlock in U.S.-Iran negotiations stems from Washington's violation of the ceasefire agreement and its ongoing maritime blockade against Iran. He argued that the U.S. policy appears focused on forcing Iran to yield, but has failed to achieve this goal through either military means or diplomacy. According to him, easing tensions requires not threats or pressure, but a sustainable agreement reached on the basis of fairness and justice.
Well, that is it for this edition of The World Today. I'll be back shortly with more news from the continent in Africa Live. Thanks for watching.
Were you worried about your life at that particular time?
Not at all.
Excellency, thank you very much for your time. What is your assessment of the state of the continent today?
Africa has the potential to power itself.
Excuse me.
Nigeria's insecurity problems deepen as 17 people are killed in an ambush in the rural northeast. A report from a government-appointed commission in Tanzania says more than 500 people were killed in last year's post-election violence. And refugees fleeing the Sudan conflict are reported to be fueling outbreaks of measles and meningitis in eastern Chad. Hello and welcome to Africa Live. As always, great to have you with us. I'm Richard Nta, live in Nairobi, and for those of you joining us from across the continent and around the globe, we thank you for joining us. Let's take a look at other stories making headlines. The IMF rolls out plans to resume a new lending program with Mozambique. And in sports, we look ahead to the 2026 Kip Keino Classic as Nairobi hosts the second World Athletics Continental Tour Gold Meet of the season. Once again, a very warm welcome to Africa Live. We begin in northern Nigeria, a region being hijacked by insecurity and violence. In the latest attack, at least 17 civilians are reported to have been killed in an ambush by suspected jihadists near the town of Gwaza in Borno State. Residents say the victims were collecting firewood and clearing farmland. Local officials confirmed the death toll, though some reports suggest the number could be higher. Gwaza has been under military control since it was recaptured from the jihadist militant group Boko Haram in 2015. But surrounding mountainous areas continue to serve as hideouts for militants. The attack comes amid warnings of a renewed surge in violence by Boko Haram and its splinter faction, Islamic State West Africa Province, despite recent military operations in the region. And now to Tanzania, where the opposition has rejected a report by a government-appointed commission of inquiry into the deadly violence which followed last year's presidential elections. Samia Suluhu Hassan won the election with more than 98% of the vote, but several opposition candidates were barred from running. The commission revealed that more than 500 people were killed in the post-election turmoil, although human rights groups say the toll was much higher. It also called for investigations into specific incidents. The opposition slammed the report, saying any investigation carried out by the government can't be taken seriously. CGTN's Sharon Baranga reports.
Those who went against the rights to live.
According to a government-appointed commission of inquiry, at least 518 people were killed in post-election violence in Tanzania last October. The commission's chair presented the findings to President Samia Suluhu Hassan in Dar es Salaam, saying the death toll may be higher due to difficulties identifying victims. Mohamed Chande Othman did not pass judgment on law enforcement's actions. However, it did recommend the formation of a criminal investigation unit to probe specific incidents.
Moreover, the commission has found indisputable evidence that the violent incidents of 29th of October were planned, coordinated, financed, and carried out by trained individuals.
President Samia Suluhu Hassan, who won last year's election with nearly 98% of the vote, said the protests were attempts to overthrow the government and received foreign funding without providing evidence.
There was also significant misinformation about that incident spread by the media, especially foreign and international outlets. According to good manners, when a tragic and painful event occurs, the expectation is to offer comfort rather than ridicule.
Opposition leaders have rejected the report, arguing that a government accused of abuses cannot investigate itself. Witnesses have alleged that security forces shot civilians, including young men, far from protest areas. Since the violence, 245 people remain unaccounted for, and 39 families have reported having seen the bodies of their loved ones in morgues before they later disappeared. The commission ruled out the presence of mass graves and concluded that the demonstrations were not peaceful, citing violations of laws requiring a 48-hour notice to police.
I want to personally admit that I did not expect something of this magnitude would happen in this country under my watch. This has placed a heavy burden on my shoulders. But I would like to assure you all that under God's will and guidance, I shall carry this burden bravely, with a lot of self-belief and great caution.
The UN Human Rights Office estimated last year that hundreds were killed in violence driven by the exclusion of leading opposition candidates from presidential and parliamentary elections. The main opposition party has said thousands died. Tanzanian authorities have denied allegations by human rights groups that the security forces used excessive force. The president announced plans to use the report to guide constitutional amendments and establish a reconciliation and investigative commission to identify those responsible for the unrest. Sharon Baranga, CGTN.
Eastern Chad is facing a dual outbreak of meningitis and measles as refugees continue to stream into the region from war-torn Sudan. Medical charity Doctors Without Borders says overcrowded camps, limited health care, and poor sanitation are accelerating the spread, particularly among young children. In the border town of Adre, measles cases have surged sharply in recent months, while meningitis cases are nearing critical levels, putting severe strain on health facilities. The outbreaks are linked to Sudan's ongoing conflict, which has displaced millions. Emergency vaccination campaigns are underway, but aid groups warn gaps in routine immunization and logistical challenges continue to leave vulnerable populations at risk. And now to Sudan, where the ongoing conflict continues to devastate the country. Into its fourth year now, the UN says it's pushed 7 in 10 people into poverty, almost double the rate before the fighting began in April 2023. Some families say the going has got so tough that they're now relying on animal fodder to survive. CGTN's Sharon Baranga has more.
At the Tawila camp in North Darfur State, we meet Salha Musa, a displaced widow from El Fasher, a city now under rebel control. She struggles to provide for her 6 children with minimal resources. Water is available from wells, but other essential services are absent. Inflation and scarcity have forced families to rely on unconventional foods. Everyday staples have disappeared from local markets, leaving vulnerable families at risk of malnutrition.
Since we arrived in Tawila a month ago, we've been suffering from a severe lack of services, except for water, which we draw from wells. We have no other services here in Omjangur, and we desperately need assistance. Our children aren't receiving an education, and I'm a nurse, and I can't find work. Food is extremely difficult to find.
The UN Development Programme warns that Sudan's economy has collapsed under the weight of the ongoing conflict, with GDP falling sharply and more than 13 million people displaced. Extreme poverty rates now surpass those of the 1980s.
Life is incredibly difficult for us poor people. If we don't have money, what are we supposed to do? Will we starve to death? After the price of corn flour became so high, we stopped buying it. I don't know why they are raising prices or hoarding goods. Flour has completely disappeared from the markets here. After flour became expensive and unavailable, we started relying on ombas, animal fodder, as our food.
UNDP projections show that peace could lift millions out of extreme poverty, but delays and continued conflict risk locking the country into decades of low growth and deprivation. For families like Salhas and Sumia's, the road ahead remains uncertain as conflict continues to dictate daily survival in Sudan. Sharon Baranga, CGTN.
More than 1,330 Sudanese students are sitting their high school leaving examinations in neighboring South Sudan due to the ongoing civil war. The Sudanese authorities say the measure is only temporary, but it is placing a burden on South Sudan's education sector, which already faces a number of challenges. CGTN's Patrick Oyet reports.
These students are sitting high school exams in a different country from their own. Sudanese pupils have had to travel from various refugee camps to South Sudan's capital, Juba, so they can take their leaving exams. Some have even traveled from Darfur in Sudan, a journey of 11 days.
I thank education officials in Darfur for arranging for us to sit exams in Juba. Reaching here was difficult. It was a long journey with lots of challenges, but I thank God we are here and we are now sitting our exams.
I'm very grateful and I'm happy that I have started sitting for the exams by God's grace. I did not believe that this day would come. I believe that I will complete the exams well.
The civil war between the Sudanese armed forces and paramilitary rapid support forces has entered a 4th year. The conflict has impacted every sector across the country, including education. Sudan's embassy in Juba says it intervened so that students displaced by war are not denied the opportunity to complete their secondary education.
Sudan's government has a comprehensive plan for education and for a better future for its youth. But because of the war in the country, we have this temporary arrangement for students. We ask our youth to have hope. We are doing everything possible to bring back peace to the country. where the youth will sit for exams in their own country.
South Sudan faces huge challenges in its education sector. According to the UN, more than 2.8 million children are out of school in the country. Then there are also the issues of poor school infrastructure, and some teachers have now gone for 2 years without being paid. There are some positive steps being taken. Last month, the Education Ministry started distributing 1.6 million textbooks to primary schools across South Sudan, an initiative supported by UNICEF and China. And South Sudan's government says it will continue to promote regional cooperation in areas such as education.
I'm happy that the regional countries of the rewarded Sudan, when there is a war, South Sudan has hosted students and given scholarship to, not only scholarship actually, a lot of the stuff has been hosted by the Juba University.
For these young people, there are possible university places after their exams, and no matter how difficult the papers, they have already overcome the challenges of wartime education. Patrick Oyet, CGTN, Juba, South Sudan.
South African President Cyril Ramaphosa has suspended the country's police chief over allegations that he violated public funds rules in the awarding of a health contract. The tender worth $13.8 million was awarded to one company to provide health services to the police. Prosecutors allege police officials colluded with the company's owner to secure the tender. CGTN's Caroline B. tells us more.
South Africa's National Police Commissioner, Fanny Masemola, stands accused of violating the country's Public Finance Act. President Cyril Ramaphosa, under increasing pressure to stamp out corruption, on Thursday suspended Masemola.
In consideration of the seriousness of these charges and the critical role that the National Commissioner of Police plays in leading the fight against crime, I have agreed with General Masemola that he be deemed to be on precautionary suspension pending the conclusion of the case.
The owner of Medicare 24, the health company awarded the tender, is among 15 others charged in the investigation. Prosecutors say the company received around $3 million in payments before the contract was cancelled. President Ramaphosa appointed Puleng Dimpane as acting police chief. She has been serving as a Financial Management Services Commissioner in the police service.
To ensure stability and continuity in the South African police force, I have appointed Lieutenant General Puleng Dimpane, who is standing right next to me here on the left-hand side, as the acting National Commissioner of Police. She will lead a police service that, notwithstanding substantial challenges that it is facing at the moment, is comprised of men and women who are committed to serving the police of this country for the good cause of justice.
The inquiry investigating the case was set up last July after a police official said corruption and political interference had compromised South Africa's law enforcement and criminal investigations. The case against Masemola and the others has been postponed to May 13th. He will remain suspended until the legal proceedings are finalized. He denies all charges against him. Caroline B., CGTN.
A major infrastructure milestone is strengthening ties between South Africa and Lesotho as the two countries deepen cooperation on one of the region's most critical resources, water. A newly launched bridge is set to boost water exports to South Africa while supporting economic developments in Lesotho. CGTN's Joy Karuki Juma with the details.
The Senko Bridge is expected to help nearly double water export from Lesotho to neighboring South Africa. Stretching more than 800 meters across rugged terrain, the bridge plays a key role in expanding a system that already supplies around 60% of the water used in Johannesburg, South Africa's economic hub. The bridge is part of Lesotho's Highland Water Project, which once complete, will increase water transfer volumes to over 1,270 billion cubic meters every year. At the launch, South African President Cyril Ramaphosa praised the partnership as a model for the continent.
This bridge is an example of what Africa can achieve when it believes in itself, when it works together to advance the interests of its people.
For Lesotho, one of the world's poorest countries, the project represents a critical source of revenue and development.
Lesotho is proud to contribute to South Africa's water security while advancing its own economic development and energy aspirations through this unique collaboration.
Costing $144 million, the bridge is also being hailed as a technical achievement, using advanced construction methods to improve safety and reduce environmental impacts. As demand for water continues to grow, the project underscores the importance of long-term cooperation in securing essential resources for the future. Joy Kiruki-Juma, CGTN.
A vaccination campaign launched in 2023 to address vaccination declines has delivered more than 100 million vaccine doses to around 18 million children around the world, including children in 11 African countries. UNICEF says that of the 18 million children under 5 reached during the big catch-up campaign, 12 million had never received any kind of vaccine. The vaccination effort concluded in March, and while the final data is still being compiled, the campaign is forecast to meet its target of vaccinating at least 21 million under-immunized children. Time now for our business segment. Here are the headlines. The IMF rolls out plans to resume a new lending program with Mozambique. And East African leaders plan a regional oil refinery with backing from billionaire Aliko Dangote.
You don't find the stories of North Africa by sitting on the sidelines. You've got to get out, go there, and you'll find them. In the bazaars of Casablanca, among the crowds in Cairo,
who come to visit Cairo, the ancient capital of Egypt.
Along the waters of the Nile, along the sands of the Sahara. No one else will take you where we can in North Africa. No one else will show you what it's all about. CGTN, see the difference.
Welcome into our business segment to Mozambique now, where the International Monetary Fund is set to send a team in June to advance talks on a new loan program. An IMF spokesperson says the two sides held productive discussions during the spring meetings on how the fund can support the Southern African nation. The talks came as Mozambique grapples with a trio of fiscal problems: an economy that shrank by an estimated 0.5% last year, public debt that stands at 91% of GDP, and a sovereign bond spread that has hit a distress level of 1,185 basis points. Mozambique's debt troubles stem from the 2016 hidden debt scandal, which shattered investor confidence. Delays to major gas projects have made the situation worse. East African countries are discussing plans for a joint oil refinery at Tanzania's port of Tanga, modeled on Nigeria's Dangote plant. East Africa currently imports all of its refined petroleum products mainly from the Middle East, leaving the region vulnerable to supply disruptions and price hikes and spikes as seen in the fallout of the Iran conflict. At a conference on infrastructure financing in Nairobi, Kenya, President William Ruto and Uganda's President Yoweri Museveni signaled strong political support for the refinery. Africa's richest man, Aliko Dangote, who was also at the conference, said he could replicate his 650,000 barrels per day Nigerian refinery in East Africa, provided governments in the region supported the initiative.
We're discussing that we're going to have a joint refinery in Tanga to benefit all of us, because that refinery is going to take on board the oil from DRC, the oil from Kenya, the oil from South Sudan, the oil from Uganda, And we will just need to build a short pipeline from Tanga to Mombasa, and the finished product will use the pipeline that we already jointly own with Uganda. So all our assets become profitable.
My commitment today here is that if we agree with the 3-4 governments here about the refinery, we will lead and will make sure that that refinery is built within the next 4 or 5 years.
The turmoil in the Middle East continues to have an impact in many parts of Africa. In the DRC, many small and medium-sized enterprises say they are struggling to stay afloat due to travel disruptions, supply chain shortages, and rising fuel prices linked to the conflict. Traders in Kinshasa have expressed concern about their future operations if the war continues. CGTN's Chris Ocharinga has more from Kinshasa.
The travel industry in the Democratic Republic of Congo is feeling the ripple effects of a war over 4,000 kilometers away. Hundreds of flight cancellations and the ongoing tensions between the US, Israel, and Iran have hit many businesses hard.
Les gens voyagent beaucoup pour Dubai.
Many people travel to Dubai, especially from Kinshasa, but the war has significantly changed things and affected our income. I think if it continues, it will be terrible for small-scale businesses like ours in the travel sector.
Claudie Bafuenibio says business has plunged by about 40%. Other traders who rely on imported products are also grappling with higher costs and lower revenue. This area on the outskirts of Kinshasa used to be full of used cars imported from Dubai and Japan. But importers can no longer ship them in due to logistical disruptions.
Car dealerships like this one in Kinshasa are already feeling the impact of the Iranian conflict thousands of miles away. Disruptions along a key Middle East route have slowed car imports, exposing just how connected global trade has become.
The importers say losses are mounting since the conflict began in late February.
We used to receive 2 or 3 car shipments every month, but now we are not even getting one. Vehicles have stopped arriving. On top of that, the shipment cost per container has jumped by $4,000 because ships have to reroute.
Many cars they ordered before the conflict began are still stuck in the United Arab Emirates, which has forced them to increase prices.
There's a scarcity of cars in Kinshasa at the moment, which has pushed prices up. Cars that used to cost $8,000 are now sold for $10,000.
One trader told us that the higher price tag is driving down sales, partly because prices on other commodities are also rising. According to Congolese authorities, the DRC spends $3 billion annually on food imports alone because it has very few industries. That dependence on imports has rendered its economy vulnerable to external shocks.
Our country will bear the full weight of this war's consequences, with little or no room to respond effectively. Our limited influence in international markets will, unfortunately, leave our country with very few options.
Some affluent traders have resorted to importing products from China and Europe at a higher cost. The DRC government has only assured the public of a steady fuel supply amidst global uncertainties. And so, many small-scale traders will have to struggle on their own to weather the storm. What began as a regional crisis in the Middle East has now become a problem for these Congolese traders and many others around the world. They hope the US, Israel, and Iran will strike a deal soon that ends the conflict and enables them to continue their business. Chris Ocharinga, CGTN, Kinshasa, Democratic Republic of Congo.
One of the most dangerous bridges in Kenya is getting an upgrade. Reconstruction work is starting soon on the Nta Bridge, which connects Meru and Tharaka counties in eastern Kenya. The bridge, known for its steep descent and poor design, has been the scene of dozens of automobile accidents and deaths. CGTN's Enoch Sokolia visited the bridge to find out how its new design will boost safety for motorists.
It is a name etched in the dark history of Kenya's roads. Nta Bridge. For decades, this bridge has been a black spot where serious and often fatal traffic accidents keep occurring.
since the year 1985. Yeah. I am not very sure about the correct statistics, but I'm aware we have lost almost 7 full buses there, leave alone the small vehicles. And every time those buses are usually full, 54, 64.
The physics of the bridge are unforgiving. Steep descents, sharp curves, and abrupt bumps means drivers must rely heavily on their brakes. If they lose control, their vehicle risks plunging into the ravine below. If rivers could speak, this one will tell some of the most haunting stories in Kenya. Stories of shattered lives, stories of twisted metals, stories of vehicles that came crashing down these cliffs. Ndwiga Mugambi, a local businessman who runs an eco-lodge in the valley, has seen it all. He remembers the day 12 people perished after their passenger vehicle rammed into an oncoming pickup.
This was the site of impact. He found a vehicle that was now climbing and they met here. And imagine every girl, every lady in that unit perished. There are no survivors.
Mugambi says Nithi Bridge demands traffic discipline, something according to him is often ignored by many motorists.
See him overtake because he thinks there is space. Ideally, this is a one-lane drop, no overtaking.
After decades of tragedy, engineers are planning a radical solution. At the center of this plan is an 800-meter viaduct across that valley. A viaduct is essentially a long bridge system designed to carry a road across difficult terrain while maintaining consistent elevation. Instead of forcing vehicles through dangerous bends and steep descents, the new road will glide across the valley on elevated pillars high above the river below. The Nithi Bridge Upgrade Project has a 2-year construction timeline. The project is being executed by a Chinese contractor, China Wuyi, known for similar high-altitude engineering feats. The company has already set up a camp at the construction site.
We have already made the design. I have looked at it myself and it's very much in order. It will straighten up the road and delete the sharp bends.
President William Ruto secured backing for the project from the Chinese government under a broader infrastructure partnership following his state visit to Beijing in 2025. For the people of this region, the news of the Cross Valley Bridge is a prayer answered. Enoch Sikoli, CGTN, Tharaka Nithi, Kenya.
To China now, the Beijing Auto Show has officially opened. Running through next Sunday, the event will showcase more than 1,400 vehicles. More than 2,000 domestic and international automakers and suppliers are taking part, alongside a record number of debut models and concept cars. Chinese brands such as Geely and BYD are highlighting advances in artificial intelligence, with new models pushing the frontier of in-car technology. Legacy car makers from Germany, Japan, and the United States are rolling out models tailored for Chinese consumers, which experts say reflects a deeper integration with local supply chains. And to the Mercosur-EU trade deal now, and Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva says the country has 540 products ready to deliver to Europe. Mercosur is a South American trade bloc established in 1991 by Argentina, Brazil, Paraguay, and Uruguay to promote free trade and regional integration. The deal, signed in January, is set to tentatively come into force on May the 1st, despite challenges from some EU members, including France. The gradual removal of tariffs between the EU and Mercosur begins immediately and is expected to be completed within 12 years. Brazil's government revealed that it expects the country's exports to increase by 13% during that period. According to the president's country's vice president, industrial exports alone could rise by 26%.
We managed to secure the EU-Mercosur agreement, and we are going to have a market of 750 million people and $22 trillion. And no one has the range of products to offer the world that Brazil has. And that requires research and quality. We already have 540 products lined up to deliver to the Europeans. All that remains is to begin the negotiation process, which starts on May the 1st.
And time now for our sports segment. Here are the headlines. Coming up, Olympic champion Gabby Thomas is among the world stars taking part in this year's Kip Keino Classic in Nairobi.
The greatest journeys, the greatest sights, the greatest adventures.
Here in Kanata, this weir allows the locals to walk on water.
We're far more than just TV news. We're your passport to the wonders of Africa. So let's explore. CGTN. See the difference.
Welcome into Sport on Africa Live with me, Richard Nta. We start with athletics, where the track and field season is well and truly underway around the world. Top stars have arrived in the Kenyan capital, Nairobi, for the second stop of the 2026 World Athletics Continental Tour. And the 7th Kip Keino Classic is set to light up the East African nation this evening. CGTN's Shadiq Shaban previews this one for us.
The 2026 Kip Keino Classic is the second round of the prestigious World Athletics Continental Tour Gold, which is a series of 11 top-ranked track and field meetings being held across 5 continents around the world. This year's event here in Kenya has attracted big names from Africa, Europe, Americas, and the Caribbean, all seeking a perfect start to the athletic season.
I feel super welcomed, and I'm so happy to be back, and I think to reflect on last year and the result, I think being able to come here and just focus on improving upon that, always striving for more, always pushing sort of the limits. I think that's what we love the most as athletes, is just being able to do what we love and being able to do it in amazing places like this.
It's been incredible. I've always wanted to come here and race here, and the hospitality has been great. The people have been great. The food has been delicious. And I had a great time in Ethiopia. I felt very welcomed. And even here in Kenya, I feel most welcomed. I'm even learning Swahili, so it's been fun. I did a little safari a couple of days ago over in the Masai Mara, so it's been such a great experience, and I can't wait to race here.
The one-day event, set to be held here in Nairobi on Friday night, has grown in status and profile since it was first held 6 years ago. African athletes will be using this meet to prepare for the long season ahead.
I was happy that Ethiopia started it this year, and I'm hoping that we can also spread that in different countries. We are working behind the scene to see if we can have more events in Africa, because it gives opportunities to our African athletes, and they don't have to travel so much to get into these competitions, and being given priority as well to just compete. So, that's something that we are working towards, and I'm sure we'll achieve it.
Personally, what I want to get is now the Olympics medal, because now that I have the World Championship title, I'll be looking forward to competing in LA and medaling in the Olympics, because I'm really in need of that medal. And I'll be doing the ultimate, though we still have a 2 year before the LA, so I'll work hard towards LA to make sure that I get the medal.
The 2026 campaign will culminate with the inaugural World Athletics Ultimate Championship scheduled for September in Hungary. With the 2026 track and field season truly underway, Athletes and fans will be hoping that the unfolding situation in the Middle East does not cause further disruption to their travel, and the situation does not torpedo the athletics calendar for the year. Sadiq Shaban, CGTN, at the Nyayo National Stadium in Nairobi, Kenya.
Well, in football, it's less than 50 days to the World Cup kickoff, and Ghana have unveiled their new head coach. Carlo Queiroz believes that leading the Black Stars into this summer's finals in North America will be the biggest challenge of his long coaching career. The 73-year-old Portuguese was unveiled in Accra on Thursday following the sacking of Otto Addo in late March.
And my first words are exactly to express